Welcome to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, the daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball. You never know what special guest may stop on by any given day. Now here's the man of the hour, Mr. Steve Jones.
Welcome. Great to have you with us on the show today. Many people have been inquiring where Jason Lord is, and we've contacted local institutions to see. What?
Just had to start off hot.
Why? People have been wondering. Right? They're mostly some of his family members. I said, I can't find them. They seemed happy.
Got it. Well,
okay.
Speaking of seeming, I know, but you gave me a segue here.
Do you know how to have fun?
I do. Speaking of happy, I'm kind of happy with the Saints' new head coach hire. Kellen Moore was brought in as the new head coach of the New Orleans Saints, and I'm happy it at least is they're taking a shot on a head coach. And the reason I know, but
let's start with this.
Before we get to Kellen Moore.
No. Let's start with this. Okay?
Yeah.
What do you usually do with a hire of a coach in the NFL? If you have a disciplinarian, you hire somebody who's a player's coach. If you have a player's coach, you hire a disciplinarian. If you have a defensive coach, you then go offensive. What have the Saints done here?
The defense to offense.
Yes.
But part of it.
Again, so I'm just telling you what the pattern is. The Jets follow the pattern up.
Well, the thing is, for me, it's not just the pattern. It is the fact that the Saints, for the first time since 2006, are finally now trying to step out of the Sean Payton business.
Well,
because
and no, because Mickey Loomis is still there.
Well, he's still there. But as when Sean Payton left and he retired for the season, the thought was try and keep continuity. So they kept Pete Carmichael as offensive coordinator, even though he didn't call plays. They kept Dennis Allen around, made him head coach, pretty much kept the whole squad. And then Sean Payton gets hired in Denver. Some people leave. Carmichael gets fired because his offense is bad. He gets fired. Sean then rehires him because, again, he never had to call plays under Sean Payton. It's a different system when you're calling plays versus not. And then Darren Rizzi and Dennis Allen were still here. They were still Sean Payton guys. Rizzi's probably going to end up with the Broncos anyway. And it was just one of those, like, we need to start fresh feelings. And this is a starting fresh.
Sure.
And I also tend to think this will most likely mean the end of Derek Carr's time in New Orleans, which is what it's currently looking like it is anyway. But it feels like a clean slate. He's coming in, hopefully he gets given the keys to the car and is told, okay, what can we do to make your system work well? Who do we have? What do we need to get? We have the 9th pick in the draft. It's not a bad position to be picking in. So he's actually have their pick this year, which we have not in a long time. So one's got to hope this goes well. You've got some pieces here and there. Alvin Kamara is still pretty good at what he does. Chris Olave is a good receiver. You've got a decent O-line. You've got good talent everywhere. It's just, can they put it together? But I'm at least happy that they're stepping away from Dennis Allen, Darren Rizzi, that group. They're making a hire that's a shot. They're not going easy. They're taking a risk and a shot with a guy who is the youngest head coach in the NFL and also has not had any experience on the head coaching level yet. And he's riding high right now, Kellen Moore. He was in New Orleans, won a Super Bowl, came back 2 days later for the job. So I'm feeling good about it.
In fact, the interesting tidbit about Kellen Moore and Derek Carr is this: they played against each other.
Yeah, and Kellen Moore roasted Derek Carr, if I'm not mistaken, 55-7 or something.
He may have roasted him, but he has a better team.
Yeah, Boise State.
Okay. Well, for Kellen Moore, it was under the category of it was time. He's been an offensive coordinator for a long time. And you knew that the spot was coming up for him to take a head coaching job. It'll be interesting to see how he handles this. He's not taking over a good team.
Nope.
But that's why they change coaches.
Yeah.
Normally you change coaches not because Now, the rarity of Bill Walsh's retiring and George Seifert's taking over, that's one thing.
Yeah.
Versus this is more the norm. That said, as a coordinator, I've never been a big Kellen Moore guy. I thought at Dallas he did okay. Like, okay. I mean, the Dallas offensive line's pretty good. Dak Prescott's pretty good. CeeDee Lamb's pretty good. You know, the tight ends they've had, I think Dalton Schultz was there when Kellen Moore was there. Pretty good. And I kind of felt like there was always something missing with them, and that he couldn't find a way to compensate at times for what was missing. You went to 1 year for the Chargers. That was a lame duck year before Harbaugh was hired. And they didn't do much of anything. Now this year, like, hey, look what he did with Philadelphia. I mean, look what he did with Philadelphia. No offense. Okay? I'll take you back to the trip to Daytona.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it was Thanksgiving week, Monday, Tuesday. So I fly from Minneapolis after the Minnesota game to Daytona, and it's a Sunday night game between the Rams and the Eagles. And they're playing out at SoFi. So Dick Girardi and I are down in the restaurant bar area watching the first half of the game. And Dick is sitting there and goes, give it to Barkley. I'm talking like every offense. I mean, I don't mean like Dick said it once.
No, he
Dick said it every play. Give it to Barkley. You didn't work that tournament, right? Okay. Yeah, I think Bob did. Oh, no. I'm trying to think. No, Joe Putnam came over. He did. He was doing women's basketball, came over. Okay. And he wasn't with us for that. And every play, Dick was like, give it to Barkley. Give it to Barkley. Give it to Barkley. The ability to call plays when you have that kind of talent is impressive. You can really get something done when you're calling plays with that kind of talent. Even in the Super Bowl, where Steve Spagnuolo committed 7 guys to the line of scrimmage because the one thing he did not want to happen, which, by the way, didn't happen, was Barkley hitting a home run on a long run. Yet, Barkley was a huge reason why the Eagles won the game. Because Kellen Moore was smart enough to put a lot of play action in there with Hurts, play action to Barkley, boom, pull the ball out, throw it downfield with one-on-one coverage. Okay. Now, that was smart in his part. But Kellen Moore never had that kind of weapon in his career. You know, Pollard was okay.
Yeah.
Zeke was okay, right? But not like Barkley. Kamara is on the back end of his career, okay? And now the ability to take something like that and parlay it into something big. Chip Kelly did exactly that with Ohio State. I mean, did Chip Kelly? I mean, was I? Wow! Look at the play calls in the Penn State Ohio State game. No, I was like, okay, whatever. But he got $6 million out of it because they won the national title, right? And so hopefully they give him some time. I don't know what kind of roster he's going to have. One thing about the NFL, it is designed, as a league, it is designed to get you back on track within a couple of years.
And I'm sitting here as a Saints fan, and I can see...
Unless you're the Giants.
Unless you're the Giants. Or the Browns, in which case you're never on track. When you think you are, you're never on the track. I'm sitting here as a Saints fan, and I can see a path for this team, which I don't think they're going to be good for the next 2 to 3 years. I will put that out there now, but I can see the path, which for me is, you need to get young guys in.
Well, here's the pathway. Let's start with this. Be 500 in your division. It's not a good division.
No.
All right? The Falcons are, I mean, they're transitioning to Michael Penix. right? Carolina's a little bit better now because when Bryce Young was put on hiatus, when they brought him back, he played a lot better, and so did they. Tampa Bay is okay to good, but that's all they are, is okay to good.
They don't scare you.
Right? So you have the opportunity, if you can go 3-3 in your own division, now, because that's always been the advantage for years the Patriots had, is that, let's be honest, the division they played in was not very good. So they would come out of that division usually every year at 5-1 in division games. That means you've only got to win 6 other games. Right? If you go 6-4 in the other 10 games, you're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Right? And that's, when you are in a relatively weak division, all right, as opposed to, at the moment, the NFC North and maybe even the AFC North, where it's Baltimore, it's Pittsburgh, it's Cincinnati. That's Joe Burrow over there. That's Lamar Jackson. That's no Russell Wilson. No, and then you go to the AFC North, where the Vikings won 14 games this year and didn't win the division because Detroit did, and Green Bay made the playoffs. Hey, you're not in that spot in that division. A team got in. That was Tampa Bay. You can go 3-3 in that division. You're also going to get I believe they're last place, right?
Yes.
So you're going to get a last place schedule, which means that you will play the Giants, for example. You'll play the other 3 last place teams. In the cross division, you will play a last place team. I mean, a cross conference, you'll play a last place team. And by the way, when they do the 9th game, whatever that 9th game is, because game 17, it's going to be a crossover game, and that's going to be a last place team. Okay, so you're going to play 5 other last place teams because that's the way the NFL is designed. It is designed to get you back on track with higher draft picks, scheduling that benefits you, if you can take advantage of it. If you can go 3-3 in your division, and in those other 5 games, say, for example, things go well, you go 3-2. Now you're at 6 wins. Can you steal a couple here, maybe 3 others, to get yourself to 9? See, and that's how the league is designed. The problem is going to be, who do you have quarterback the team?
Yes.
And that's why I would not bag Derek Carr.
No.
There are only, in my opinion, maybe 14 or 15 guys that are competent in the NFL at quarterback. I mean, competent. There are people playing quarterback and they're okay and can have a good day.
Yeah.
But those can be consistently competent. There's only 15. He's one of the 15.
Yeah.
So you don't mess around with that part of it. That's a guy that I look at and say, okay, we got him. We're not going to bring in a career backup. We're not going to draft somebody because there's nobody in the draft that you're going to take unless you pick somebody in the 2nd round. That's why I've been advocating for the Steelers to look in the 2nd round, not the 1st round, the 2nd round at Jackson Dart of Ole Miss. I think he would be a good 2nd round pick. I didn't say 1st. You don't pick Jackson Dart in the 1st round. You pick him in the 2nd round. There's only 2 worthy 1st round draft candidates, Cam Ward of Miami and Shedeur Sanders of Colorado. But they're going to be gone by the time you pick at 9. So you've got to look at it from that standpoint. Can I go 3-3 in my division? Can I go 3-2 against the other last place teams? All right, now I've got you up to, of the 17 games, I now have you up to
5.
No, I've got you up to 11. 11 games overall. So what do I do in the other 6? If I could somehow go 500 in the other 6, well, now I've got 9 wins and I'm in the playoffs. Right? It's like the old adage of baseball. You win 54, you lose 54. It's what you do in the other 54 that determines what you do. All right. Now, I remember in 2018 when the Red Sox won, okay, they ended up, I think, in the other 54, I think they were 52-2.
Not bad.
Right. And see, Bob, in other words, what you do in the division, 6 games. What do you do against okay, the teams you have to play, which would be the last place teams. Can I go 3-2? Now it's what do I do in the other 6? If I can go 3-3, I got 9 wins.
Yeah. I sit here as a Saints fan. I think realistically, Derek Carr is going to be here for this next season. I don't think the Saints or the organization is going to do what the Broncos did with Russell Wilson, where they're going to cut him and have a 40-some-odd million cap hit. I know the Broncos way higher for Russ. I don't think the Saints are going to do that for Derek Carr because there's no reason to, because you cannot get somebody that is of his caliber. You rather have someone at least be there who can do the job for a season and then cut bait next year when you can get rid of him easily without an issue. And so,
unless he has a really good year.
Unless he has a good year, in which case we see what happens.
Again, he is one of those 15 competent NFL-level quarterbacks. Okay? You don't want to tie Kellen Moore's hands behind his back by putting somebody out there that can't handle the speed of the game.
Yes.
Carr can handle the speed of the game, which is important. Now, Denver was different. You're watching Russell Wilson at Seattle, and you feel like in the last year and a half you saw for him a drop-off. He goes to Denver, and you really could see a drop-off. Now, to the credit, and again, it's going to be interesting watching drafts moving forward with quarterbacks, because so many teams now in college football are older in both basketball and in football. They draft Bo Nix, older, has seen really every speed between 2 years of Oregon in the Pac-12, 3 years of Auburn in the SEC, saw some ups and downs, and there's plenty of tape that shows how does he handle the downs. Now, how did he handle the downs, like the Washington game, for example? You know, both Washington games when he was at Oregon. How did he handle it? Did he bounce back? Did he get him? You know, did he make one loss become 2? And he didn't. And when you have all that video, because NFL teams were making the big mistake of, wow, he had a great year, Mitchell Trubisky, but it was his only year as a starter. There wasn't negative video out there of him on a consistent basis. He didn't see every speed of team, you know, whether it was the ACC or a couple of non-con games where he sat back and go, okay, you know, how does he handle this? How does he handle that? Take Drew. Drew has seen in 2 years about every speed you can think of. He has seen how Ohio State plays, how Notre Dame plays, how Oregon plays. He has seen how Michigan plays. He has seen across the board, you know, how Illinois plays the game. He, you know, I mean, he has seen all of that along the way. You know, how does Washington do it? How does, how does UCLA do it? How did the USC defense play? Right? He's seen all of that to this point in his career, and he's going to come back for one more year. What Arch Manning is doing down at Texas is very interesting. I give him all the credit in the world for being patient. How many people would have been in his spot backing up Quinn Ewers, who is a very good but not great college quarterback?
Yeah.
All right. He's very good, but he's not great. I mean, in the NFL, he's as a quarterback, it's hard to predict. I mean, somebody may make him a second-day guy, but in reality, he's a third-day guy, right? Well, so was Tom Brady, but Ewers isn't Brady. But Arch Manning was behind him. Now, none of us are at practice every day, so we don't know in what Steve Sarkisian wants to do, whether Manning had growing pains or not. We're not there every day. You can't tell. But you're going to find more and more quarterbacks being older. Cam Ward is an older quarterback.
Last year, Michael Penix, older quarterback.
Bo Nix, older quarterback. Shedeur Sanders is an older quarterback.
Gabriel.
He started it. Gabriel, though,
but he's an older quarterback.
He's an older quarterback. Well, yeah, he's like the career record for starts with 64-5, I think, in his career. Well, but here's the issue. I mean, but there's still certain standards that hold in the NFL. Gabriel's probably 5'10 and a half. Probably. When they beat Ohio State up in Eugene, the offensive line did a great job for him of taking – the two tackles are very good anyway – of taking the ends outside, Sawyer and Tuliamolo. But they also did a great job of taking the two tackles and moving them left and right.
So he could see through the middle.
So he could see and step up and make plays. You notice the second time in the Rose Bowl, Jim overwhelmed him with pressure in the face, and that's the height issue on quarterbacks. So, like, take Carr, for example. Carr's got a good arm. He sees the field fairly well. Not perfect, but he sees the field fairly well. He is got good size for a quarterback, knows how to move, will need some help on the offensive line.
And this is where I get to the roster construction, how it is now versus how I think it will be in 2 years' time. I don't look at Kellen Moore coming in as a fix-it and it's going to be perfect in a year or so.
Oh, no.
I think it's going to take the Saints 3 years to change over the roster. And part of this is going to be with the O-line and everyone else. And I think in 3 years' time, we look back, Derek Carr aside for the time being, I think there'll be a new quarterback in, there'll be a new running back in alongside Kamara because he's 30, he's still good, but he's got some injury concerns now, so he's good enough to service you for the time being. So the Saints have issues there. Olave's had injury concerns, same with Rashid Shaheed, so the pair of them. But then you look at the O-line, there are pieces to build with. Cesar Ruiz has shown he's
very good. I think he's very good.
Eric McCoy is one of, if not the best centers in the NFL. He's great. Talisi Fuaga, your first-round draft pick last year, showed he's real good.
He's fine.
He's fine. And then you've got on the defensive side of things, Pete Werner at linebacker, pretty good. You also have players in the secondary of Paulson Adebo, Alante Taylor, Kool-Aid McKinstry, who've shown you good things. But along with the young guys, you have the old guys teach them how to play. Secondary, you have Tyrann Mathieu, who's pretty good.
I've always liked Mathieu. He always seems to understand. He seems to see where plays are happening. Thus, he puts himself in a position to get the ball.
He's in the defense alone. You have in the secondary him. In the interior, you have Demario Davis at linebacker, who is one of the best linebackers in the NFL, 35 years old.
He's terrific.
And then Cam Jordan on the D-line. The three of them, we're going to have the entire defense in terms of just being veterans and teaching them how to play the game.
Right. Well, this is where Mickey Loomis will have to be really good. All right. It's going to be in the free agency part of it. You're finding more and more that you don't have stars in the free agency part. They're locked up. But there's some very good players in the free agency part. Now you need parts that fit. Okay? And, like, let's take an example of former Saint, Zach Bond. Well, Zach Bond goes to Philadelphia, and they change positions with him. All right? Because they thought he would fit in as a linebacker with them, which is what they needed, as opposed to being a defensive end. What the Saints, like other teams, need to do is you go out and your scouting has to be really good on this about guys that fit, about positional fit, and then in turn it then affects your draft. How you perform in free agency and what holes you fill now in turn go to your draft. So that you sit there and say, okay, we need a defensive end. And you sign a defensive end. Well, now instead of drafting one in the first round, you take another position of need. Or you might even be in a position with the 9th overall pick where instead of a position of need, we need everything. No, not necessarily. You may sit there and a player may fall to you and you say to yourself, I don't care what's going on. We're taking this guy.
Sometimes you take the best player on the available. Whoever's there, you just take them.
And this is where, for example, if you want to know why Dave Gettleman is no longer the general manager of the New York Giants, it goes all the way back to the Devontae Smith draft. They had zeroed in on Devontae Smith. Okay. The Cowboys were drafting in front of the Giants. And I think both the Cowboys and the Eagles were drafting in front of them.
The Eagles they're both drafting in front of them.
Right. And they flipped picks. I'm trying to think. No, I think one of them had to be behind because what happened was that the Cowboys the Cowboys were in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
The Eagles and the Cowboys flipped. Now the Eagles are in front. They take Smith.
Mm-hmm.
The Giants, instead of taking Micah Parsons, because the second they took Smith, I said, well, that's it. I said that's an easy one. The Giants should take Micah Parsons.
Mm-hmm.
No, he traded down, and Chicago got that pick. I don't even know who Chicago
They took
picked.
Justin Fields. So
they took
10th
Fields.
pick.
Yeah.
Dallas was at 10. Philly was at 12. Giants were at 11. Dallas and Philly swapped. Philly then took Devonta Smith.
He goes back to 20, and he takes Kadarius Toney,
who just got arrested, by the way.
But when they took Toney, my son called me up. He said, "What do you think of that pick?" I said, "It's a horrible pick." I said, "This guy," will wash out of the league. I said, "He is not." I said, "They should have taken Micah Parsons." Right? And again, at that point, maybe the best player in the draft has now fallen to you. You take that player because guess what? You're not going to get another generational talent in that spot. You can pick other guys in other rounds.
And that's why...
Okay, you want the long list of guys that are rounds 2 through 7 that are making catches in the NFL? Well, a bunch.
The amount of fingers I am crossing, hoping by some miracle, Abdul Carter falls to 9. I know he will not fall past like 3. No. But if he can fall to 9, I am going to drive him to New Orleans myself.
Okay, here's why he won't fall to 9.
Yeah, he's too good.
Well, no, but it's beyond, we all know how incredibly talented he is, right? There are not enough quarterbacks in this draft.
The quarterbacks are what screw it up.
If you had 4 or 5 quarterbacks that people were thinking about considering doing whatever, like, for example, Michael Penix was the 8th overall pick in the draft last year. Okay, which really confused a lot of people because they had signed Kirk Cousins. Now he's going to be the guy. But you had quarterbacks. Okay, what allowed the Eagles to pick Quinyon Mitchell where they did last year?
The quarterbacks, 6 went in 6 and 12.
Okay, 6 of the first 12 picks are quarterbacks. Then you have other people picking offensive linemen and so forth. The Eagles didn't have to move anywhere. Because people were jumping on a certain position or 2 positions in particular, and the Eagles, to their credit, sat back and go, "We're going to be fine. He's going to be here at whatever it was, 27 or whatever the number was." And the quarterbacks jumble the draft. The quarterbacks should not jumble this draft. The quarterbacks should be, there would be 2 of them. Those are the only 2 first-round talents that are there. It doesn't mean you can't get value, as I mentioned, a Jackson Dart on day 2. Okay? Because I think Dart's biggest issue is when you put pressure in his face. Most quarterbacks hate that anyway, but the really good ones react to it better more times. Dart, that's the issue. If you put pressure in him, but if he has to move, he can move. He's got a really good arm. He can drop the ball in the bucket. There's a lot of really good things about him. The question about him will be not only the facial pressure that he usually doesn't handle well. The other one will be whether he's accused of being a system quarterback.
Going back to the Saints, just to wrap up.
Which, by the way, that could be the Saints' second-round pick. The second-round pick for the Saints could be Jackson Dart.
Yeah. And I'm sitting here as a Saints fan, and I want there to, I know Kellen Moore is going to be the man controlling the offense, and I'm intrigued to see who they bring on the defensive side.
And by the way, he will have input as to the kind of quarterback he wants to have with Mickey Loomis.
Yeah. And I'm guessing he'll take the spring, and he'll take the start of the training camp to figure out how he feels about Carr and Rattler throughout the season too.
But I'm going back to the draft now.
I know.
Okay, I'm sitting there on day 2 because one's out of it.
One, I don't want first and second round. I don't want a quarterback.
You don't reach.
No,
but he will have the ability to evaluate the position and give Mickey Loomis input of okay, what do you think of Quinn Ewers? What do you think of Will Howard?
I think of Kyle McCord.
What do you think of Kyle McCord? Yeah. Okay. What do you think of Jackson Dart? What do you think of Dylan Gabriel? In other words, okay, we're not going to take a quarterback in the first round, but Kellen, if we go with somebody on day 2,
and you feel real good about it, why not?
Is there somebody that you think in day 2 we need to zero in on? Yeah. Right? Because that's a position he played. That's the position he coaches. All right. He knows what he's looking for in the style of offense that he has. Does he want a quarterback like Jalen Hurts that can move? Dak Prescott, by the way, can move some, and so can Herbert. Those are the 3 quarterbacks he has coached in the NFL. All 3 do have mobility, with Hurts being the greatest of them all.
You know what my issue has been with the Saints in recent seasons, which I'm excited to see them go away from? Dennis Allen had this schema of player he wanted, because, of course, he was a defensive coordinator. He wanted defensive players. And when the Saints would draft, they would always go for the project defensive ends. And that was where Saints fans, I think, got fed up with not just him, but with Loomis in the front office. And that's where the anger has come out, because the Saints have had a lot of draft picks. And Brian Bresee has been really good in the defensive tackle line, so we'll take him out of it.
I would have picked him, yeah.
He's been good. But you've
got... Boy, did Penn State want him.
He's a real good player. So he's the exception to this rule. But in the 2023 draft, Isaiah Foskey has just not played, has not been hurt, just has not played, because he just hasn't been good. And then you go back to 2021, Peyton Turner. Nothing. We got nothing out of him. They traded up for him, took him, and he hasn't been good. Okay. And then you go back, you've got Marcus Davenport.
How about Jacksonville with the first overall pick? They took Walker. Okay. This is what happens when you have some front office people trying to outsmart other people, and the only person they end up outsmarting is themselves. Okay? If it is obvious, take the obvious. Now let's give Jacksonville credit. When Trevor Lawrence was there, he was the obvious first overall pick. Okay. Right? But, hey, take the obvious guy.
They should have taken Aiden Hutchinson, Jacksonville.
No kidding.
Who was there?
Right, exactly. Right? Because Hutchinson, okay, big-time program, played in big-time games, excelled in big-time games, and when you're playing in big-time games, you are playing against other big-time people. You are playing against other big-time offensive linemen. Hutchinson had a game here in Beaver Stadium where he was phenomenal. Rasheed Walker was banged up in the game, but he went up against Walker and he did a job. Walker's starting for the Green Bay Packers right now.
It's good.
Okay? But I'm saying my point is, you're in those games, it's good on good. And if you can't sit there and evaluate good on good, you should not be a GM.
There are so many players drafted on the chance that they do well, and they haven't had production in college. And people say, oh, but this, that, and the other reasons why they didn't produce. That breaks my mind. That's why the Saints, they drafted these long 6'5" defensive ends who had not produced in college, but had shown you a flash here or there. And they're like, that guy's going to be great. And they take him like Foskey, and they just do nothing. And I'm just like, why?
Okay. If you're sitting there and you're looking at the analytics of the player and all the measurements, what do you do with Nolan Smith? He is an undersized, 245-pound edge guy. Well, he doesn't fit the profile until you're watching the tape and realizing that number 3 for the Philadelphia Eagles is in the backfield all the time.
Yeah, until you realize he's demolishing everybody.
Yeah. Okay. You can do all the profiles that you want. The video doesn't lie.
It's not just the video doesn't lie. It's also, it should not be based on, there are a lot of players who are drafted. And so many times you see it not work out, where they're drafted based on the chance of possibly the talent panning out.
Again.
And I'm just like, if
it's
let's say
good on good. The video doesn't lie. If I see good on good, right, that's telling me something. Okay. Walker ended up being a draftable player and now starts in the NFL at left tackle for Green Bay. Well, okay, Hutchinson, he had to go head to head. I'm using that as an example.
Yeah.
Okay? You were sitting there and you're at Penn State and Drew Shelton. Shelton had to go head-to-head with JTT.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? Shelton this year did a good job with JTT, who is a hell of a player.
Yeah.
Okay? Well, that's telling me something. Okay? That's why I've always felt, let's go back to the Trey Lance, Carson Wentz.
Mm-hmm.
Each time it's at North Dakota State. Now, what kind of read am I getting when you're facing the University of North Dakota, not North Dakota State, but the University of North Dakota? What kind of read am I getting when you're playing an FCS schedule? I can't quite get the read. That's why you'll see Cam Ward go from an FCS to Washington State. You go, because I think he started at Incarnate Word, right? You're like, okay, the Pac-12 schedule, got some athletes they can play. Now he goes to Miami, like, okay, even better caliber conference. All right.
Or Jaden Daniels was at, Arizona State?
Arizona State and LSU started for 5 years. Right? I've got all sorts of stuff showing me the ups and downs, because they're going to be downs. Everybody has downs. Ask Aaron Rodgers. I'm
smiling.
Right. But everybody has downs. How do you react to it? Bo Nix had that, okay? Bo Nix, right, had downs in his career. I mean, I thought the game he played in Beaver Stadium was actually pretty good. He didn't throw an interception that night. I thought he played pretty good. But, I mean, I saw enough video of him going in, of mistakes that he made and so forth. And then you see him at Oregon, far more polished, a little more older, able to handle it. Now he goes to the NFL. He's had a really good year. Now, remember, teams will adjust to him. Let's see what he does in the second year. But, okay, that's why I say the video doesn't lie. Okay? I've got to be able to have a really astute eye to figure out whether Carson Wentz is really that good.
Yeah.
Or is it a combination of he's good, but that corner over there is got no chance of being in the league. Okay? And North Dakota State has much better talent, because when Wentz was there, he rolled over people. Lance was in an impossible spot, and this is where the 49ers made a gigantic mistake. And I said on the day they drafted him, they made a gigantic mistake, and the reason is that goes back to that example I gave before. Limited video.
That whole draft, I'm looking back at it now, was just a weird...
Now remember, this is coming off 2020 when you couldn't tell.
Limited tape, but you look at that draft, and let's go through
He only had one game. He had one game.
Let's go through that first round, because I would be really intrigued to just talk about it now in hindsight, now that it's been 3 years since the draft happened, or 4 years now. Right. Trevor Lawrence went 1. Fair. I mean, he's been good.
Look,
he's Jacksonville.
He's been up and down, but he's still the guy that's the obvious first pick.
Zach Wilson.
Okay, I didn't like. Okay, but again, didn't like him.
People fell in love with the whole he can make a throw rolling to his left 60 yards downfield. Oh my gosh, it's the greatest throw ever. There was no one playing defense.
Okay, the biggest buildup that he had going, in terms of a game, was, remember how everybody wanted to jump on the Coastal Carolina bandwagon?
Yeah.
And they played that game, I think it was in Myrtle Beach. Right? They didn't play well.
No.
Right? You're like going, no offense, but if Penn State's playing Coastal Carolina, how much grumbling are there from the fans about why they're playing a team like that? How come they don't play Auburn? Right?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Right? That's why I was like, when the media falls in love with teams, I'm sitting there like going, no, if they were on Ohio State's schedule, they'd be like, why? Right? Okay, that tells you a lot. Why? They know.
Yeah.
Okay? So Wilson goes out and plays that game, and I'm like, it was the best game of the freaking week. I'm trying to remember where I was at the time. So we traveled during I sat back and went, okay, I don't get it.
Yeah. Well, he goes 2. Trey Lance went 3, as we've discussed.
Yep.
Kyle Pitts went 4.
And Kyle Pitt's been a good player.
He's been a good player.
He's been a good player for Atlanta. I thought that was a good pick. I liked it at the time. tight end with wide out skills,
Yeah.
and he still plays well.
Yeah.
I mean, I've talked to Wes Durham about him, and Wes said he's been terrific for them.
Then you've got 5, of course, has been a really good player, Jamar Chase.
He's been great.
Knockout pick.
But again, what did they do? Okay, because you're going to get to Penn Sewell here in a moment. Everybody had slotted Penn Sewell for Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And he would have been, because
Great.
you see he is just
monster.
a major league tackle. But what they did is they said, the game has changed. We can get some offensive linemen, probably in free agency. Okay, so I don't know how they did in free agency that year. We need a home run threat at wide receiver, and that Joe knows.
And
Well,
that's the thing.
That was the quintessential 21st century draft pick right there, and one that I said right away, that was a great pick.
And I will never fault them for that, because you sat there, and as you said, he's a home run threat. He also was a guy that your quarterback knows.
Yeah,
which
everything.
There is a lot that can be said about a
check
player.
every box with that pick.
Yeah. So every box was checked. 6, Jalen Waddle has been okay for Miami.
Yeah, no,
They've
he's
had
been
Tyreek
fine.
Hill alongside him,
Yeah,
so his production has
but
been
I like
lower,
Waddle.
yeah.
I think. I mean, you're talking about that draft. That's fine.
But same thing with him and Tua. Tua know each other. They know each other. So
they know each other. But Waddle is a good player.
And then, of course, Penn Sewell.
He was just a tremendous long-term Jonathan Ogden. Maybe not to the level of Anthony Munoz. Munoz is
he's going to be
he's Detroit.
15-year stalwart.
Yes, he's going to be. Detroit is going to have a lot of things built around him for a long time.
8, you have J.C. Horn, was drafted out of South Carolina. He's been okay.
He's all right.
9, reigning defensive player of the year, Patrick Surtain.
Yeah,
incredible pick.
but again, Surtain you thought would be a great player. He is a great player.
And then back-to-back Alabama teammates, Devonta Smith, as we've said.
Yep.
It's been a great pick. Justin Fields, the Bears swung for the fences.
No.
And missed.
Missed.
Number 12,
Micah.
some dude.
Yeah.
Rashawn Slater for the Chargers has been good. He's been a good offensive
Did I ever
lineman
tell
for
you the
them.
Rashawn Slater story? I was flying to Wyoming. Remember I told you the story about the guys being thrown off the plane?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm sitting in the last row, right? Across from me is Tim Loomis, the assistant coach. The guy sitting next to me on my left, Reggie Slater, University of Wyoming forward, Rashawn's dad.
Okay.
So we talked on the flight from Denver up to Casper. But yeah, I know
Rashawn's been he's been good. He's been a
Rashawn
good
Slater
offensive
is a
lineman.
good professional offensive. Again, the Chargers have been thrilled with what they have with him.
He's great. Elijah Vera Tucker was next for the Jets. He's been up and down, more down. Mac Jones, won't get into that. Zaven Collins was next for Arizona. I haven't seen a lot of him. Alex Leatherwood, I don't think is in the league or is not playing. Jalen Phillips for Miami.
He's had some good moments. But,
Jamin Davis for Washington. No. We'll skip past Kadarius Toney.
Brutal.
Kwity Paye for the Colts has been good. He's played.
Well, Kwity Paye, though, again. Kwity Paye I liked.
Yeah.
Okay? With Michigan?
Michigan.
Okay. I'm sitting there like going, that makes sense. Again, big-time program, playing in big-time games, in big-time atmospheres, and going into a lot of games where it's good on good, good on good, good on good.
Yeah.
Right? As opposed to, like, the other side isn't that good. Well, guess what? You're Kwity Paye. You've got to play Penn State. You've got to play Ohio State. You start going through the list.
And then after that, back-to-back Virginia Tech picks. Caleb Farley, the defensive back to the Titans. He's been injured a lot.
Yeah.
Christian Darrisaw then to Minnesota on the O-line. He's been good. He's played for them.
Yeah. I mean, Farley, injuries have hurt him because I thought he was good at Virginia
Talented.
Tech. I did. Penn State was supposed to play them in 20 down there, and the game got canceled. Right? So
for reasons fair. Najee Harris and Travis Etienne back-to-back.
Okay.
This is the funky one. This
It's
is the
funky. They've both been good. And again, when you're talking now in the mid-20s, I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to start splitting hairs in the mid-20s. In other words, in the mid-20s, you get value out of each.
Value out of each. Greg Newsome.
I mean, Harris is not going to be with the Steelers next year.
No. Greg Newsome the second to
player.
Cleveland, good player. Rashad Bateman to the Ravens.
It's taken him a little while because of injuries.
Yeah.
He's okay.
The next is the Saints pick Peyton Turner, who has just not been good.
Right.
Eric Stokes to Green Bay. I don't think he's with Green Bay anymore. Or he might. I don't remember. He's played. Yeah. And then 3 straight defensive line picks-ish. You have Gregory Rousseau to Buffalo.
Terrific.
He's been incredible.
Yep.
Odafe Owe, incredible.
Outstanding.
And then Joe Tryon to Tampa. He's been great too.
Yeah.
So that's the first round. After that, you've got guys taken in the second, whether it's Landon Dickerson by Philadelphia, Liam Eichenberg for Miami, Asante Samuel Jr. You've got a bunch of players throughout here that were great.
Let me say something, though, about 2 picks in particular, Micah Parsons and Jamar Chase. I felt that they were going to be the 2 guys, along with a few others. I think there was a quarterback in here, too, that elected not to play the 20 season. Now, Micah's decision, he made his decision the day before the Big Ten blew it off, but we were hearing they were going to blow it off.
Yeah.
Right?
It was an informed decision.
Let me put it this way. It's, informed maybe on his part. Don't get me started on it.
We won't.
But
he didn't play the season.
You want to talk about, right? One of my biggest issues over the years is that the poor leadership has just bugged me. I can't stand poor leadership.
Okay.
But now back to Micah and Jamar Chase. They both sat out that year. The SEC was going to play. They had a 10-game season. Eventually, the Big Ten played, an 9-game season? 9-game season. Right? But they didn't start till the end of October. They both sat out, and I said, remember, there are going to be players that when they get to training camp and play the first preseason game, it'll be the first game they've played in 19 months. I said, they're going to be the bell cow as to whether this works or not. And both those guys made it work.
Yeah. They both made it work. They both been incredible. You look throughout the rest of the draft, though, with the players taken, you've got, as we've mentioned, Landon Dickerson by the Eagles in that second round.
But again, he played a lot of football. He played in the SEC. He's playing against nose tackles that are in the league. You
know who was taken in the second round by Kansas City? 2 incredible picks at the end of that round? Nick Bolton at linebacker and Creed Humphrey on the O-line. Right. Both great picks.
Right.
Both have worked really well and have both showed out throughout the rest of the draft.
I think Bolton's a special player.
He is.
I'm big on Bolton. I don't care. They think, look at the Super. Just slow down. I mean, it's like
And for anyone who thinks there's not players in the rest of the draft that are going to be,
you always do.
You always should think it because you look in that third round. I just want to. Some of the names I'm seeing as I scroll through.
To me, I think there's value in the first 4 rounds all over the place.
Yeah.
Now, rounds 5 through 7,
that's where you might take a shot.
Okay, you take a shot here and there, but the first 4 rounds, you've got guys that should be not only making your team but contributing right away.
Third round picks, just to name a few. Andre Cisco out of Syracuse is starting for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I love Cisco. You've got Aleem McNeil for the Detroit Lions D-line. Milton Williams, we just saw what he could do.
And McNeil getting hurt Detroit in the postseason.
And then Milton Williams, you saw what he could do when he's healthy and playing well. You also, in this round, you scroll on down, you've got Nico Collins for Houston.
He's been terrific.
Incredible. And then scrolling through the rest of the round, Ife Melifonwu for Detroit. He's been great as a cornerback, also out of Syracuse. Quinn Miners for Denver has been a good lineman. And then 4th round, some dude named Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Right.
Some dude.
And again, but they were able to get a wide receiver in round 4 that can play.
Yeah.
Right? You got a lot of guys that fall into that category. It's like, I always, the people will ask me about the draft, and I'll say, look, if you are a first 3-round guy, you need to play your way out of the league. Okay? I'll give you Nelson Aguilar. Right? You got to play your way out of the league. Notice how many chances he keeps getting. When you're rounds 4 through 7 are a free agent, you have to play your way into the league. What do I mean by that? Your play is going to determine whether you get a second contract. It is easier to get a second contract or hook on with another team when you're 1 through 3. Because you've got guys like, for example, Najee Harris is not going to get his contract renewed. But he's going to hook on with somebody.
Someone's going to take him.
Right? If he's round 4 through 7, it might be more of a struggle.
Yeah. I do want to, by the way, I just clicked back one more draft just to look at it because I enjoy looking at these drafts from back, quote unquote, back in the day, 2020. Someone I want to shout out for having played his way almost seemingly back into the NFL, Mekhi Becton. He was taken by the Jets. He had injury issues. He was on a Jets team that didn't do well. People didn't believe in him. He got let go. He went to the Eagles. Spoiler, dude was great. I mean, he showed you why he is incredible and why he was the 11th overall pick in the draft.
First of all, Jeff Stoutland is considered to be among the better offensive line coaches in the NFL. It also doesn't hurt when the guys around you are really good players too.
The best O-line in the NFL, or one of?
Where you're not out on an island playing, as opposed to the guy next to you is really not, or if you're playing tackle, that tight end is like more of a pass catching guy. It doesn't really help out much in the blocking scheme. Sometimes falling into the right place with the right coach, with the right personnel, allows you to then just be the best you.
Like that unit, just to go through it, you have Lane Johnson, Landon Dickerson, Jordan Mailata, Cam Jurgens stepped in for Jason Kelsey, and then Mekhi Becton.
But see, that's when you're playing well. I years ago, I made this comment about Antoine Randall, second round pick by the Steelers. Steelers back then were really, really good. So in the second round, they take him. And I said, look, when you're in the position the Steelers are, where the guy can return punts, can play some offense for you, right? Great athlete. So you can take a vanity pick and do that. The Eagles were in a position a couple of years ago where they could have taken Lindenbaum, whom I would have taken, by the way. He would have been the guy I would have picked.
Yeah.
Or a guy like Jurgens. Now, the difference is Lindenbaum was center-centric. Jurgens could play guard, was center, but could play guard. So I understood it. But they picked it with the idea that he would replace Jason Kelsey someday.
And they nailed that one.
Right.
And
I'm just saying, and if it didn't work, Dickerson could have, because Dickerson played center
at Alabama.
And
we saw Jurgens got hurt, and then they put Dickerson at center. Dickerson was also hurt, so they flipped them back and just said, you're both half hurt. Let's just see what happens.
See if we can get one whole guy to play.
And they got one whole guy to play and then won a Super Bowl because of it.
2 weeks helped.
2 weeks, yeah. But the fact is, like, they built that O-line.
But you can draft the Jurgens piece because you went out and traded for A.J. Brown. You didn't have to worry about it.
Which still, by the way, highway robbery.
You drafted Devontae Smith. Goddard had developed really well for you. Okay, the missing piece on that entire football team was Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
Okay? With all due respect to a well put together football team, and it is well put together, they do not win the Super Bowl unless they have Saquon Barkley. If Barkley's not there, they will lose a couple of more games during the course of the regular season. They will probably have to go on the road, and they're going to have to rely more on Jalen Hurts and less on play action because they don't have that threat back there, which then in turn means the defense is off the field more. The defense is playing with the lead more. But the defense was great. No, there's a lot of things that come into play here, right? They're not on the field as often. The Eagles can do whatever they want out in the field, although the running joke was in the Washington game. Washington went on, 17-play drive to open the game, got a field goal out of it. Barkley then went 61 yards for a touchdown. And I guess Darius Slay was like, oh, great, now we got to go back out there again. Thanks. Right? But, again, they don't have him. There's a good chance they are not having a parade tomorrow because of the domino effect he had on both sides of the ball. Okay? Yeah. Big plays. Eagles spent so much time playing with the lead. The toughest playoff game they had was the Rams. Toughest playoff game. And in the snow, who broke off a 60-some-odd yard run where he cut not on the hash mark, which they had shoveled. He cut on the snow as if he was cutting on pavement, right? And goes through, and they can't catch him, right? And again, that was their toughest game. They held on in that game. I mean, because the Rams made a big mistake. They had that team tired, and then they called timeout and they huddled. Like, no, keep going.
Run them down.
Right? Keep going. Don't let them. The Eagles are not a big change of personnel team anyway. On defense, Fangio doesn't. They don't have like hey, we're bringing 5 guys in. He doesn't do that. Okay, but they were getting tired. They weren't getting to Stafford. Now they're running routes, and the secondary is getting a little, because you don't have a chance to set and do what you want to do. And then they made the strategic mistake, and they've huddled. No. I've got a quarterback out there that's, what is Stafford, 12, 13 years? It's okay. I think he knows what we want to do.
Thank you for listening to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a 7 Mountain Media production. Come back at 11 every weekday for analysis of the latest happening in the sports landscape. From college football to European soccer,